Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you do me a huge favor, head out to iTunes or even on Stitcher and go rate and review our show. It would really help us out. Thank you so much. Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Disc Golf Answer Man. I am Bobby Cool Daddy Slick Breeze, and we have another special player interview. And on the line, we have Team Dynamic Discs, Chris Clemons. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Living the dream.
Living the dream. Out on tour. In fact, where are you at again?
I'm in Southwest Colorado, so most people kind of know Durango, and it's about 45 minutes west of that.
And you're up there preparing for a tournament that's coming up, or?
Yeah, last week I played in the Norman Pro-Am, and then the day that it finished, I headed west, and I spent the night in a national forest in Albuquerque.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I just kind of parked on a kind of a trailhead and hiked like a half mile in, and then posted up my hammock and just slept at the foot of a mountain.
That's awesome.
And so it was super cool, waking up to sunrise and just all these mountains that I didn't see because I got in at like 10 p.m. And then I drove another 3.5 hours to my buddy's farm out here. And he's been out here for a couple of years. And I came one time back like 2 years ago. But it's just an awesome place.
That's pretty cool, man.
Oh, yeah.
So we've had you on here before. It was you and Rebecca Cox. So we learned a little bit about you. But just to kind of remind everybody, tell us a little bit about how you got your start and I guess your disc golf discovery story.
So back growing up, I played just tons of different sports, basketball and baseball and football and all that. And so in high school, I played basketball and baseball as well. And one of my friends, I think it might have been our junior year, so this would have been 2005. I knew he played disc golf, but I had no idea what it was. And I'd never even thrown a Frisbee or anything. And he was like, hey, and got a couple of us to go out there. And I remember I played, and I was just awful. I remember some of my first scores were like 20, 25 over par. Wow. And it's a pretty easy course in Joplin, Missouri. Yeah, it was just tough. Like, I didn't really know what I was doing, but, playing sports your whole life, you can kind of pick stuff up pretty quick. Yeah. And so all of us got better, and then we kind of caught the bug where we wanted to play every day during the summer. And so that's how it kind of started. And the guy who actually taught me and got me into disc golf, he's the one with a farm here in Southwest Colorado.
Nice. Now, you say you played a lot. You played a lot of other sports. Do you think that playing the other sports helped you, or maybe hindered in any way your disc golf game? At least at the beginning.
At the beginning, it definitely helped me. When you play sports and you practice and everything like that, especially at a higher level, like in high school, you kind of learn, how to get your body to do certain things. If you're like hitting a baseball, you have to have good hand-eye coordination. And so whenever he would describe something to me, it might take a little bit to like get it, but I kind of understand what my body's doing. Yeah. And so I can kind of learn how to get this flat, because most people throw with the nose up. And so I think it definitely helped me. And over the years, once I got better and started to actually practice, it helped me to kind of know how to practice because of all those years of playing basketball and baseball.
Do you think between the different sports you played, there was one particular sport that better suited you for the disc golf mechanics, or?
Yeah, definitely. Baseball definitely helped out a lot. Yeah. I remember at the beginning, I couldn't throw. I threw strictly backhand, and then my buddy was like, "Hey, you can also try this," and he threw a thumber. And I was like, why didn't you tell me that? It's just like throwing a baseball. And so I started doing that, and it was like, okay, I'm never throwing a backhand again. And so I threw a lot of overhand shots And then once I started to get better, I just stopped throwing overhand shots as much.
Yeah.
But then recently, over the last couple of years, I've developed a sidearm, and that's, very similar to throwing, the mechanics.
Yeah.
And so that's helped a lot for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen you throw, and I know a lot of people, you're known for, throwing very far with your forehand shot. I guess real quick, what is some advice to someone that's first off, what's advice do you give to someone that's like, I guess like for me, I don't have a forehand shot. It's a terrible thing. I know I need to practice it. So what's something you would give a beginner to say, hey, this is how you should practice your forehand shots?
When I learned how to throw a backhand, I learned with an Innova Orc. And so that's pretty overstable for a brand new beginner.
Right.
And so I developed some bad techniques, rolling my wrist just to get a good S flight out of the disc.
Yeah.
And so I had to go back and relearn the backhand. So when I wanted to learn a forehand, I started from the beginning, and I started doing it with putters, and I would use a truth a lot, neutral, mid-range, stuff like that. So you can really see, how the disc is coming out of your hand. If you're wrist rolling or it's coming out wobbly, you're going to notice that with the slower disc. But what most people do, they kind of get something really overstable, like a stiletto or a felon or something, and they just kind of torque over on it. And it's so overstable that it'll always come out of it. But if you really want to learn how to get a lot of distance, learning how to hyzer flip. If you watch Big Germ, man, he takes just something kind of a flippy mid-range, and he just like pops it kind of like an ultimate disc, and that thing just flies 300 feet dead straight. And very few people can do that.
Yeah.
And so I think learning how to do that will make your forehand a lot better.
Now you may have already mentioned this in your advice, but was there ever a aha moment when you were when you throw forehands, you thought, oh, that's made a big difference in either my accuracy or my distance?
Yeah, I remember when I first started throwing forehands, it's called a split grip. Okay. So my middle finger would be on the rim, and then my pointer finger would be kind of towards the middle of the disc, and they were, split apart.
Yeah.
And then I remember somebody was like, hey man, try like the gun, where both of them are together. And I tried that, and it felt weird at first, but I started to get more distance and more power. And so that was kind of one of those things where I was like, oh man, like no wonder people throw further. I've tried the power grip like Macbeth does. I think Sexton does it too. But it's just not very comfortable for me.
Yeah. So let's kind of back up a little bit and go back to kind of the beginning. Now, you became a PDGA member or in 2011, you became a member. But you had been playing how long before you became a member?
I first started, I think, in 2005. Okay. And I played the Four States Open in Joplin, Missouri. I played that in like 2007 in rec, I think. And I think I tied for second place with some of my buddies. But I didn't play another tournament until like 6 years later, or actually 4 or 5 years later. Yeah.
So, okay. So going back to that, 2011, so you became official in 2011. And you played, how many years did you play, excuse me, in the AM division?
I think I started playing open. It might have been 2013. Okay. And what I kind of did, because I jumped straight to advanced, because that's kind of where the people that I played with, that's where they were playing. Okay. And they had already been playing tournaments. So I was like, I figure I will do that. And I did pretty well. I had a lot of like top 5 finishes, but I didn't really start winning any tournaments in advance until maybe a year after playing. And then once I did, learning how to win was a great tool to have. And then once I started getting better in advance, especially locally, I started playing open and like unsanctioned events. And, once I won a couple of those, then I kind of jumped into open, and yeah. And then, but I think I played open for a couple months and not accepting cash because I wanted to play Am Worlds in Emporia in 2013.
Okay. So
yeah.
Was it just, so it sounds like your plan was to just play some events, and every time you get a little bit better in a division, move up. You played rec, then you started playing some advanced, and then you started playing some pro events once you got back. Was that the only thing that you're in your mind that maybe caused that decision to say, you know what, I'm going to move up a level? Was it just that you did better, or were there any other factors that helped you make that choice?
I don't know. Like, I don't really remember how I approached it or really thought about it. And I know that I see a lot of people, they talk about it on Reddit and on Facebook. What division do I play? There's this guy playing in my intermediate division this weekend, and he's 50 points higher than everybody else. And there's so much about it. And I think some of the guys that I played with, I would kind of base where they were playing, and that's where I would play, and just get more confidence and kind of move up. Because I think playing with people that are better than you, you expect more of yourself, and you get more comfortable playing against people that way. I think some people, they will play in a division for an extended amount of time, or maybe they want to win first or something like that. Kind of get used to playing, maybe playing down to people, or, you're not progressing, you need to push yourself.
Yeah. What was it like that first time you played your first pro event? Nervous, or did you feel you're well prepared, or what did you do to prepare yourself for that?
Oh, I'm sure I was nervous. I get nervous before every event, even smaller ones.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that that's a good thing, because when I stop getting nervous, that means that I don't care anymore.
Sure.
Because, I've dedicated the last 6-7 years of my life to being the best disc golfer I can be. And so I care a lot. And so I'm sure whenever I was preparing for the event, because when I first started to get better, maybe 2012, 13, I kind of knew what event I would be playing, and I didn't play every single weekend. So maybe I played, once every 3 weeks. And so I could kind of prepare and get ready, and just put a lot of practice in, and, it worked for me then. So I've carried it over into, being a professional now. I'm playing every weekend. If I put the work and the time in beforehand, once I get through the tournament day, I don't have to worry about anything, because I did everything I could.
Now, I can't remember if it was 2017 or 2018. I can't remember what the year it was, but you can see where your events, and I think it was 2016, you played 18 or 17, and then all of a sudden the next year, 2017, it was 27 events. So you added 10 more spots to your sanctioned event.
Yep.
And I knew that at some point, just from talking to you on and off, that you had decided, you know what, I'm going to really put my all into it and get out there and get on the road and do the tour thing. What was the motivation behind that?
I think
we may have lost them, folks. I can't hear you, Chris. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Do you got me?
Okay, now you're back.
Hello?
I'm here.
Okay. I think in 2016, I kind of first moved to Kansas City, and I was kind of getting my bearings. So I was trying to find a good steady job, and then doing that, and then playing disc golf on the weekends. And then 2017, I was, pretty established in Kansas City, and everything was, going well. And so I was able to play a lot more. And I think I started out the year really well. And so it made me, just want to play more and more. And then I started playing, bigger tournaments and started traveling a bit more. And I was like, man, this is amazing. I want to do this. I can compete with these guys, and I want this to be my life, because I see other people doing it, and they get to travel to Oregon and go on and see waterfalls and cool stuff like that. So I was like, man, I want to do that. And I also want to play disc golf.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I do. I don't even play. I just get to go film it and stuff. And that's one of the most exciting parts for me is being able to travel to new places. In fact, it's been a while since I've traveled for disc golf. I'm getting kind of antsy. I'm ready to get out on a disc golf.
Oh yeah.
I was watching some coverage of the San Francisco Open. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be there. I want to be among everybody and all the excitement and all the tension and everything that happens watching those rounds and stuff like that.
For sure.
Now, go ahead.
I was just saying, I saw the course for the San Francisco Open. I was like, man, this is the most lefty favorable course that we've played all year, and I missed it. But it was really, because you saw a lot of people throwing rollers, and turnovers and stuff like that, and they were having trouble. Because a lot of those shots are long, and I was like, man, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, we didn't bring up the fact now, obviously in the other interview, if people listen, they remember we know that you're a lefty, but any new listeners don't know you're a lefty. We're going to come back to that because I've got some lefty questions for you. But I want to get back to I want to get back to the kind of the tour. So I see from your upcoming tour and recent events, you follow somewhat of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So I'm assuming that kind of makes it easy for you to figure out what are some big events I need to go to. But other than that, how do you figure out where you're going to go?
Well, so my buddy Jordan Castro, he's our teammate on Dynamic Discs, and he has been to a lot of the bigger events over the last couple of years. So I think he's been to Beaver State before. He went to Montana last year. And he's been to a lot of the bigger cool ones. And so he's kind of like, hey man, you need to go to these. And so when I have him tell me that, and he's like, and we can ride together, I'm like, well, that solves it. That makes it really easy.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. And so there's just tournaments that you hear about over the years, even when I play in Kansas City, and guys like Paul Ulibarri, he'd pass through and we play, a C or B tier together. But he'd tell me about, hey man, I played this sweet tournament up, who knows where. And he's like, you need to go to it. And so you hear about these cool tournaments, from other players, and it's. So that's what you kind of build your schedule around. But yeah, having the NTs and the Disc Golf Pro Tours and the majors, you can kind of build your tour around that. And I know that it's a lot better than it was.
Yeah.
When Emac was touring a lot, like 10 years ago, he had to, drive to Florida and then like to Arizona and then back up to New York. He was all over the place.
Yeah, it seems like they've really put a little more thought into that, so that some of these top, you top touring guys, that the way you pay to get to the very next event could very well be how you place in the tournament you're playing. So you got to make those dollars stretch for sure. So being able to go short distances from stop to stop is very nice, I'm sure. What was a couple, every now and then we get a question about people that are trying to have tournaments in their state, in their town or whatever, and they want to build it up to be the next big thing, or at least something big enough to attract some of you top touring pros. What advice would you give to those people wanting to run those type of tournaments? What attracts the top guys to those type of events?
I mean, it's the biggest reason is probably pretty obvious, and that is, of course, a chance to win a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because these top guys, it's kind of their livelihood. And so having that is a huge incentive. But then on top of that, having, just a cool community and cool things to do or places to see, that adds a lot. And I mean, in Emporia, Kansas, like it has the biggest tournament every year annually in the Glassbone Open. And, but, a lot of people aren't going to go to Emporia for like a tourist destination because it's kind of in the middle of the Midwest. It's like there's nothing really around it.
Yeah.
But it's the community. Everybody's on board, and you go into a coffee shop and somebody asks you how your round went and stuff like that. That makes people come back because it makes you feel important as a disc golfer.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Very cool. Now, okay, so now let's talk about, as Anthony put it, when I told him I was going to interview you, he said, ask him, why does he throw with the wrong arm? So, lefty is just a thing that you, in the other sports, were you lefty dominant?
Yeah, I've been left-handed at everything I've done my entire life. In basketball, I can, dribble and like shoot layups right-handed and stuff, but everything is left-handed.
Yeah, because I know that may sound like a weird question to some of our listeners, but I mean, I'm a good example of that. If you hand me a pen and want me to write something down, I'm writing it with my right hand. But if you hand me a baseball or a football, I'm throwing it with my left. But if you hand me a disc, I'm throwing it with my right hand. So it's like it's those things you don't even think of. It's just all of a sudden that's just the way it is. Like if I tried to throw a football with my right arm, it would look like a wounded duck just flopping everywhere. It'd be awful. So, but okay. Yeah. So you mentioned something about the San Francisco Open course. You were like, oh my gosh, that's a lefty friendly course. What makes a course lefty friendly?
So, because I've given a lot of thought about this over the last couple of years, and I mean, most people who design courses are right-handed, so they kind of see. And a lot of the people that we see play, Ricky, Paul McBeth, Drew Gibson, those guys, they're right-handed and they throw backhands predominantly.
Right.
And so I think a lot of course designers, they design courses with them in mind. And so at the San Francisco Open, I saw a lot of people just throwing different shots. Like they weren't able, like Paul, he was throwing rollers. And he was throwing long turnovers, and he threw forehands too. So that told me that there wasn't a right-handed backhand hyzer available, because usually you throw a hyzer, forehand or backhand. That's the most consistent shot. And so I saw a lot of people throwing turnovers and stuff like that. And so that told me that I would have been able to throw a lot of left-hand backhand hyzers.
Interesting.
And I think that with shorter holes, so if you have a hole that is 300 feet for, the top professionals, 300 feet, they can pretty much throw almost any shot to get there pretty consistently. But it's when you start lengthening those holes to 400 and 450, 500 feet, that's when, the forehand, a lot of even the top guys, they don't throw forehands 450 feet. Or if they do, it's, a little erratic. And so I think so I've been working on my forehand because I have to have it because, I kind of try to mimic if I see Paul McBeth, he's throwing a right-handed hyzer, spike hyzer, 400, 450 feet. I'll try to mimic that and throw a forehand just like that.
I gotcha. So because these designers seem to design with the right-handed guy in mind, do you think that puts you at a disadvantage being mostly left-handed, or you just have to make those adjustments?
Well, I think that it makes my game different. My game, it's changed quite a bit in the last even year because I am playing harder courses than I ever have, and my forehand is getting more powerful than it ever has, and I'm using it more. I do think being left-handed, like if you look at the courses, it's pretty obvious. Like you can see where the righties will have an advantage, but for me, I kind of like being at a disadvantage because I want to be the best in spite of that. So it makes me want to work extra hard. And so being left-handed your whole life, you got to deal with like right-handed scissors and, right-handed desks. So it's nothing new really.
Yeah, I guess. Now, at one point, talking about being the best at one point, I don't know if you still are, I haven't looked, but I know at one point you were the highest rated lefty in the world, correct?
Yep.
What was that feeling like when you found that out?
Well, I originally, when I first got sponsored by Latitude 64, I wrote them a letter. I wrote them a letter to get sponsored, and I said that I wanted to be the best left-handed player in the world. That was one of my big goals. And and I knew like Devin Owens, he was on their team at that point, you know, and so like, and I watched him. I wanted to emulate him because he was just really good, you know. He still is one of the best in the world, and so I wanted to emulate him, and I wanted to be better than him. You know, that's the goal that I set for myself. And so when I became the highest rated, you know, like rating, it's just a number. You know, but it was something that I took pride in because I worked hard for it, and I played really well. And so it was really cool to do. And it's like, man, like 3 years ago, I was, you know, kind of a nobody, and I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never played a professional tournament, and then to, you know, to play so well and, you know, set a goal for yourself and to, you know, kind of achieve it, you know, it makes you feel really good.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. That's really cool. So I did want to ask you something, though, just to get your opinion. So the San Francisco Open was played on a ball golf course, and of course GBO and the Emporia Country Club's on a ball golf course. What is kind of your thoughts on, you know, because I paid attention to some of the Facebook chatter, and some people thought, you know, oh, Emporia Country Club is just throw really hard and you're good to go. But I think a lot of the players mentioned that it was still a challenging course. It wasn't just all throw as hard as you can. And San Francisco Open, I got good reviews as far as a ball golf course having a disc golf course on a ball golf course. What are your thoughts on, do you think that that's a progression in the sport to do stuff like that? Or you think that's not a good thing, or what are your thoughts?
I think that it's kind of necessary as far as where disc golf is going, because we have, you know, Joe Mez and Central Coast Disc Golf and the Disc Golf Guy. They're all filming the sport, and it's way easier to film it, you know, on more of an open course. It's way harder to get galleries and a film crew, you know, packed in super tight woods. And so I think that there's a reason why it's happening. And, it doesn't really, those longer courses, they definitely cater to guys like Eagle and Simon and Drew Gibson. I mean, if you look at their finishes on those courses, like, you can see that they have a definite advantage over a lot of the men pro open field. Yeah. But you have to adapt, you know, as a player. Like, you can't say, you know, we need to play tighter woods holes, and like, if you don't, you're not going to play well. Like, if that's what we're going to play on, you got to get better at throwing further, you know, and that's all that there is to it. For me, I think there needs to be kind of a balance. And I know I was watching a video, I think it was the Waco tournament, where Big Germ was talking about how he enjoyed courses that were a little tighter, and how we needed to have more of a balance, having some tighter courses and having more open courses. And I definitely agree with that, because I think both courses are really fun to play. They're different, and they're going to give different players advantages over other players. But, you know, who doesn't like to see somebody throw 600 feet? You know, like, that's really fun to watch. Yeah. So I get why they're putting a lot of courses on ball golf courses. Yeah,
but you're right. There is that delicate balance, trying to figure out having a balance between tight and open, open for camera coverage. And then, of course, you know, we love having spectators, and, you know, we don't have setups where we have bleachers all along the course and stuff. You know, we've got to figure out how to fit that. You know, we want the huge gallery, but then we got to figure out where to put the huge gallery. And, you know, I've been to
exactly.
Yeah, I've been to events where they've literally had to tell people, okay, you're going to have to go this way while the players go the other way. And then we can't even see, you know, 2 or 3 of the holes, what's happening until they actually throw it toward the basket or something like that, because we had to go a different way because there's just not enough room to put them there. Of course, that's when I use my trick that I explained on one of my vlog episodes, where when I have the camera, they let me in and film it, so I get to see the action. So that's a little trade secret there.
Nice. That is. So, now you're going to see the whole gallery.
I know everyone's going to have. Yeah, hey, I've got my camera. So anyway, no. So, but yeah, I think my opinion is I think we need that. And I think, you know, I know people don't like the whole private versus public course, but, you know, I've been to events that I thought were supposed to be big time events, and we're out here playing, and you've got people having picnics and stuff like that. And that of course wouldn't happen on a private course, but you can't tell these people to leave the public park because that's what it is. It's a public park. They can, you can ask them, you can kind of rent the park and kind of let people know, but you might be met with some friction if someone really wants to have a picnic where they're having a picnic. So, but.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And it's cool that we're actually having that conversation now, that disc golf is getting big enough to, have this conversation. So it's definitely moving in the right direction.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts, though, on we're going to get a little deep here as far as now, this is my world. This is my bubble because, I do the social media for Dynamic Discs and, other entities and stuff like that. There seems to be, and even kind of keeping current, the whole, we don't have to get into a debate between but you heard about Roseanne Barr and the show being canceled, correct?
I don't think so.
No, you're out in the woods. Maybe you didn't hear. What had happened?
Was it recent? Because there's like 2 days ago out here in Colorado.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was like two days ago. Okay. So what had happened? I'll give you a brief, unopinionated of what happened. Basically, Roseanne Barr has a new show where she revived Roseanne, the show, and all the characters and stuff like that. And apparently it was doing fairly well. And she tweeted out something that a lot of people felt was inappropriate. And ABC basically said, because you made that tweet, we canceled your show. And so kind of the debate is how does public opinion cause a show to be canceled? So the reason I bring that up is I don't know why this thought came to my mind, but I see you on Instagram and you're active on Instagram and Facebook, and I don't know how much you pay attention, but especially like with the Ricky Foot fault thing, it felt like it was like the jury of internet people just came down on Ricky. So I didn't know what your thoughts is as a guy that's getting out there and touring and trying to make a name for himself in disc golf, how much you are affected by, maybe by nothing, you're affected by the public opinion of social media.
It's interesting because I was one, like so maybe 2010, 2011, when I kind of started to learn about like tournaments in disc golf. I remember going on Disc Golf Course Review. Yeah. Disc Golf, I think there was another one.
There was one called Disc Golfers Are Us.
As much as I could.
Do you remember that one? Disc Golfers Are Us? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like I learned a lot from those guys and stuff, but it seemed like a pretty small community. But like I even go on Reddit now and they like to, they are opinionated, but I mean, I think it's kind of interesting because we are at the point now that there are so many people and so many eyes on disc golf that we're actually like, people are talking about it. And 5-10 years ago, like nobody really cared about that stuff, or nobody would hear about it. For me, like, I think, it's really cool to see that, and these people definitely have their opinions. And I don't know, like, because some of these guys, they could be really good golfers. We don't know who they are, especially on Reddit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the avenue of the internet. You can kind of be whoever you want. You can say whatever you want, and there's like no repercussions. Yeah. And I've talked about this with different people and my friends, if we're talking about religion or politics, anything like that, like you see people get very heated on Facebook, and they talk and they want to argue. But if you ever have a talk in person with somebody and you have differing opinions, usually you're a lot more kind, and you want to listen a little bit more. And so I think you kind of gotta. For me, I've gotten in arguments and stuff on Facebook, and I try not to now because I think there's more people watching and stuff like that. But just always be kind. Like, everybody has a different opinion on how you're supposed to live your life or how other people should live their lives, but that's completely fine. Just, be kind to one another. Like, if you do that, then you can learn a lot more.
Yeah, I do agree. There is that sort of human disconnect when you're just typing on a keyboard rather than being in someone's face and seeing the reaction and having to react to that reaction, or at least live with the consequences of that reaction. That doesn't happen online. So I know that was kind of off on a different tangent, but I don't know why it just came.
No, I like it.
Based on what we were talking about. So speaking of the sport growing and getting bigger and getting in front of new eyes, how do you describe disc golf to someone who has no idea what it is? What's your go-to story?
Well, I know that like 5 years ago, whenever I'd tell people about disc golf, like 99% of people had no idea what it was. And now I tell people about disc golf, and they know what it is. Nice. It's really cool. But the easiest way that I like to describe it is most people kind of know what golf is and how it's played. And so I'm like, so just imagine that, throwing a Frisbee and you're trying to get it into a target. And actually, here last night in Colorado, my buddy, he is the head basketball coach for the high school here. And so we took some of the kids out to play, and they've never played before, but they were loving it, and I tell people, I'm like, all you need is one Frisbee. I will give it to you. And you just, go out there with your family. Like if you just want to get outside and walk around, it's amazing because it's like you can go and play in really cool places, and the disc golf part maybe becomes secondary because you're in such a cool place in nature, and you can, walk around and hike and, different cool things like that, or just enjoy being outside. But you get to, kind of push yourself playing a game too. So I think it's amazing. And that's how I describe it to people. That's
awesome. Good stuff. I see from your Instagram though, I see a few pictures of your girlfriend who plays disc golf. Is that pretty cool to be able to have someone, a significant other that is interested in the sport that you play?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've known her for a while, and she has been playing for a while. So she kind of, already knew. So it wasn't, like something she had no idea about.
Right.
But I've definitely been able to kind of help her and coach her. And it's something that we have in common. And she actually played a tournament. It was the women's disc golf event, global event in Kansas City. And it was really cool to get to go and see all the women there playing, and, young kids and older women, and get to caddy for them. And it's just super cool to see. And the women's game, like, it's different, it's growing, but it still has a long ways to go, just because there's so few women. But I've seen in the last 3 or 4 years, there's so many more women playing, and, young people. And so like, it's only going to get better. And women in general are going to get better. So it's really cool to see.
Do you ever talk to her about how to grow the sport in the women's field? I do. We talk about it. She's good friends with like Katrina Allen, and she met Paige, I think, in Las Vegas, and she probably met her before that, they talked a little bit. And so she's in the game, and I think a big thing is just being encouraging and getting people out there. In Northwest Arkansas, there's some golf there, and a lot of people wouldn't really imagine it, but Matt Boyd, he just opened a dynamic disc store there in Springdale, and so like the sport's really growing there, and that's one of the big things I'm gonna try to do, especially in the off season, and try to get into that store and get around there and try to do clinics and get people interested in stuff like that. That'll be great. All right. Well, Chris, we've come to the part of the interview where we call it the fast round. I'm going to ask you some questions that probably have nothing to do with disc golf, but just always kind of fun to hear people's answers to the questions. Some of them are similar to what I've asked somebody else. So you can give one-word answers, or you can elaborate if you'd like. Are you ready?
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Are you more of a hunter or a gatherer?
Gatherer.
Oh, really? I figured you'd say hunter so. with you sleeping out in the woods and stuff like that.
Well,
go ahead.
I mean, I don't own a gun at all.
Oh, I
and
got
so, yeah. So being out here on my buddy's farm, though, I mean, we have to gather, like, he grows lettuce and carrots and just all different kinds of stuff. And so I gathered some today.
There
So that's
you go.
probably why I said that.
There you go. All right. What do you think about when you are alone in your car?
I probably think about, oh man, that's a good one. Probably think about just being happy, positive, optimistic things.
Yeah, I'd say when I didn't know who you were, but you knew you were on Team Latitude. So, and at the time I was working for Team Latitude, so I knew I had to take pictures of this guy with the big hair, and that was always my consent. That was always my thought when your name came up. I was like, oh, that's the guy that's really cool. He's real laid back and always happy and stuff. So,
yep.
What's the last thing you watched on TV, and why did you choose to watch it?
Oh man, it was probably Game 7, and it was the Cavaliers against the Celtics.
Oh,
yeah, and I didn't really care who won. I just wanted to see a really good game.
Yeah.
It was pretty good, but the Celtics kind of fell off at the end there.
All right, here's one. An ostrich walks through the door right now wearing a pirate's hat. What does he say, and what is he doing here?
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened out here. It's kind of weird out here in Colorado. He probably asked me if I had any water because it's super dry out here.
So
and he's probably just passing through.
Just passing on by.
Yeah.
Helping you gather stuff, huh?
Exactly.
All right. So what are you obsessed with right now that is not disc golf related? It could be anything. It could be Snicker candy bars. I don't know. But what is something you are kind of obsessing about right now?
Well, I've been kind of a gamer my whole life. So if I'm at home, I like to play Fortnite. That's a fun game. But if I'm on the road, I like to play a game called Hearthstone, and it's kind of like Magic the Gathering. It's kind of a card game.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of strategy stuff like that. And so, yeah, that stuff's always fun to think about, think about strategy. It's kind of like, a chess game. So it just kind of gives you stuff to think about. And, yeah, so I like to think about that stuff. That's always fun.
I gotcha. Cool. All right. Well, the last question is actually not really a question. It's more of I'm asking you to ask us a question. What's something you'd like to ask our listeners? It doesn't have to be disc golf related. It can be anything, but something to get our listeners to think about. What would you ask them?
I would ask them. So I personally have been thinking about and kind of have started on writing a book.
Oh.
And I would like to know what listeners, what you guys in the social media world would like to have included in that book, because I see a lot of people asking, I see everything from, what do you do to mentally prepare for a tournament, physically prepare for a tournament? What do you do if you're missing putts? So there's so many different topics you can touch on. And so I kind of have been thinking that I have a lot in my mind about that. And so I'd like to put it down on paper.
Nice.
And, maybe, yeah. So there's like the Zen of Disc Golf. I know that book exists and I've read that, but there's not a lot of reading material out there for people. And, for golf, you have like Golf Digest, and there's just tons of different books. Jack Nicklaus has written books, but I think disc golf could definitely benefit from that, because tons of people have questions, and there's not a whole lot of people who really know or really have the time to answer those questions.
I got you. Cool. Yeah. So what should be included in your book? All right. Cool. I'll add that to the description. We'll see if we can get some answers
what would
for you.
people like to? Yeah, what would they like to know more about?
Nice. Cool. Well, Chris, thanks so much for taking the time out to do this interview with us and allowing us to get to know you a little bit better. I'll let you get back to your hanging out in Colorado and getting ready for your next event. If people want to follow you a little bit more and know more about you, where can they do that?
I think my Instagram is DD Clemonade. And then I'm on Facebook as well. I'm also on Reddit. I think my name on there is like Yankees23. And I used to be a Yankees fan. When I talked to Jeremy Rusko, I still am, but now I'm more of a Royals fan.
I gotcha. How funny. Cool. All right. Well, I'll include that in the notes of the episode as well. All right. Thanks again, Chris. I appreciate it. We'll let you get on with your day. We'll talk to you later.
Yes, sir. All righty. See you, buddy.
Bye.